Welcome to This Week in the World of Wrestling.
Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John, that's my cohort and commentary, Ashton, and this is our Monday Night Raw review. The go-home Raw before Extreme Rules this Sunday. And you know what? I've got to say, I enjoyed this Raw tonight. I feel like as far as go-home shows go, this has been one of the stronger ones in recent memory. I really enjoyed all 3 hours. I mean, were there a few lulls here and there? Sure. But overall, I felt like this is a very consistent episode of Raw, and I just really enjoyed most of the stuff presented here. So, Ashton, what did you think of it?
Yeah, this was a solid show. Honestly, you know what? The best way to kind of illustrate how much I like this show would be is if we get into our next segment.
Absolutely. So let's get right into it. Heat of the night. I have 0 heats tonight. I don't have any nitpicks either. Ashton, what about you?
And I'm on the exact same page as you. No nitpicks, no heats of the night. There was nothing on this show that made me angry. There was nothing on this show that made me want to pull my hair out. There was nothing really infuriating on this show. And I think that's like the first time that either one of us has been able to say that, not counting the post-Raw or post-WrestleMania Raw in months.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I feel like every storyline is headed in a direction that I can appreciate from one perspective or another.
You know what? I will say this, too. This Raw and the matches that kind of fell out from this Raw to kind of round out the Extreme Rules card has definitely made me so much more excited for the pay-per-view this Sunday. I really am looking forward to the show. So I think that should really be the biggest endorsement I could give for this episode of Raw tonight. So with that said, since neither one of us have any grievances to air...
Well, I just wanted to, before we get into the actual review, I just wanted to throw this out there because I've kind of been doing this every week now, and I just kind of want to make it a regular thing. Scale 1 to 10, this show is probably a solid 8 for me.
I would agree with that score. I think that's a fair score.
Yep.
So with that said, let us roll right on through to our Monday Night Raw review. And we open up with Randy Orton coming out. We see a steel cage high above the ring. He pretty much says, Seth Rollins, you are one dumb bastard. Because now he's pretty much got Rollins trapped. He says, I'm going to break your jaw. I'm going to break your ribs. Pretty much he's going to break and pick Seth Rollins apart. And then when it's all over, he will become the WWE World Heavyweight Champion this Sunday. Seth Rollins comes out. Now, here's Seth Rollins, I think, really carries this segment for me. Because he comes out and he says, you know, Randy, I didn't really catch everything you were saying in the back. You know, I was answering some emails. But let me just get the gist of it. You know, you're going to beat me up. And then you're going to take me to you're going to do all this. So pretty much just mocking the pretty standard babyface promo of, oh, I'm going to kick your ass, man, kind of deal. So I really like that tone from Rollins. And he says, look, I am on the fast track to becoming the greatest WWE World Heavyweight Champion in history. And all of this, and he kind of makes a grand gesture of like the whole arena, I'm the best at it. In the ring, I out-wrestle everybody. Outside of it, I outthink everybody. So a very...
Except for his fiancée.
Except for, yeah, that was real nice. But, you know, then you have Orton cut Rollins off at the pass and say, you know what? He's talking about banning the RKO. I'm going to get it out of my system because as soon as this segment's over and we go to commercial break, when we come back, I'm going to go through there and I'm going to RKO every son of a bitch I see. And then at the end of the night, there's an RKO that's going to be waiting for you. Orton drops the mic, and that's pretty much that segment. Really enjoyed this. I think this really set a great tone for the rest of the show. Love the energy from both guys. Again, Rollins' confidence as a heel, you know, being a part of the Authority, it is just wonderful to watch each and every, especially now that he's champion, because I feel like it has a little extra air to it because he is the man now. And that was kind of a theme throughout the night, too, that I really liked that we explored. And Orton, I think, is doing great in this babyface role because he has such a great foil in Rollins. And that energy, you know, with the final few lines of I'm just going to RKO everybody tonight, I think, again, really set the standard for what we could expect for the rest of the show.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, this opening segment was solid. It didn't seem like it dragged on too long. Sadly, I didn't actually make note of how long it went, but definitely didn't feel like the typical 20-minute intro promo.
Absolutely, completely agree. With that said, our first match of the night was Dean Ambrose versus Luke Harper. Not really much to say here. I loved how these guys handled it, though, because this is pretty much a fight from the get-go. Hell, I mean, Luke Harper kind of cuts a promo like on his way to the ring and says, I don't know why you don't fear me, but after tonight, you will. And, then they just start, it's like a slugfest, just straight out of the gate. And then it pretty much boils all the way like outside of the ring, through the crowd. Then they get on the stage, and it's just, they're fighting everywhere. Ambrose is going to hit Dirty Deeds at one point, the WRAT to Luke Harper. Harper escapes out, and he runs away. I didn't really care for that too much, but you know what? He is the heel in the equation, so I think, that's to kind of get the heat on him, exhibiting that cowardice and everything. So Ambrose does get the upper hand. And, just to kind of package it all in this one segment, we find out later in the show that these two this Sunday at Extreme Rules will be having a Chicago street fight. Really excited to see these two featured together in a singles match on a pay-per-view with a stipulation like this. I think they could really do something really awesome if given like 10, 15 minutes come Sunday. So
yeah, I mean, here's my thing. I didn't make it a heat of the night or a nitpick exclusively because I would fear that my sort of inner Dean Ambrose mark was coming out. But I really hate the way Dean Ambrose has been treated for the last, 6 months.
Right.
I mean, after the Rollins thing, which main evented the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, they stuck him with the only guy on the roster who can out-crazy him. And now they're sticking him with the only guy on the roster that can out-grunge him.
Yeah, Dean Ambrose is in a very peculiar place right now. And see, it's weird because I think you know how high I've been on Luke Harper, like all these months. So I'm actually excited for him that he gets to work with Dean Ambrose in an environment like this. But, where does Dean Ambrose really go? Like, I see this as an elevation for Luke Harper, but stagnation for Dean Ambrose. And that's nothing against Luke Harper. It's like you just said, Ashton. It was only a little bit ago that Dean Ambrose was main eventing a pay-per-view with Seth Rollins, and now he's just kind of working through the mid-card. Now, I've heard rumors that he's getting set for a really big push this summer, and I'd love to believe them because the pieces are in place with Seth Rollins as WWE World Heavyweight Champion. But, I mean, with matches like this and knowing his track record on pay-per-view, how can we really put any stock into that? You know what I mean? It's a shame because Dean Ambrose is so good, and I think he could do so much better than what he's doing right now, despite the fact that I am enjoying it. It can't be denied that Dean Ambrose is far more talented than this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that my biggest thing is if they're planning on giving him a push this summer, it's not going to feel natural because he hasn't really been given an opportunity to get over, really. I mean, he's been in 2 consecutive big feuds now. I guess you can't really call them consecutive because the big IC title thing, which he really did kind of start but didn't really end up getting anything out of, was in between. But if you don't count that, 2 consecutive feuds with guys that were kind of on that fringe where like people wanted to boo them, but they're so good that they get cheered when they're in the ring every now and then. And I just don't like the way that they've been using Dean at all.
I kind of fear, I don't know if this is a proper analogy, so forgive me, but it's the best name that comes to mind at the moment. But I do kind of fear that Dean Ambrose is kind of in that Christian territory. Like, they put him in these situations because they know he can deliver. Like, personally, I would have put the Intercontinental Championship on him. I know the fervor and the fanfare was all behind Daniel Bryan, and this isn't a jab at him, but we can kind of see the fallout now with his health and everything. That's still a precarious thing going on with him. And I loved the promos that Dean was cutting about, wanting to be Intercontinental Champion and the stuff he was doing with BNB. And like you said, it started with him, so by all logical accounts, it should have ended with him. And I would have loved to have seen him as IC champion. But then you see he has like this great one-on-one match with John Cena for the U.S. title, which he has that history with of having such a ridiculous reign when he was a member of the Shield. And now he's feuding with Luke Harper. It's like they just stick Dean in these situations, but there's no long-term game plan. And that's kind of a shame. Like, he does good in the moment, but what's the future for Dean Ambrose? What's the big story for Dean Ambrose? Because he can carry a big story, and that's really the upset, I think, with me. I would assume with you for a degree, and I think a lot of other Dean Ambrose fans. We know that he's so good, and I think he's just kind of this hand expected to put on good matches just in a particular slot any given time. And that's really unfair to his abilities and a gross underestimation of what he's capable of.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where with Daniel Bryan, you kind of always had this sense of the WWE knows what they have in him, and he's gonna get his chance. I haven't really gotten that sense with them with Dean Ambrose.
Yeah, I hate to agree with you, bro, but I really don't have any contentions to that because I really feel like if they did, we would have seen it by now because, they made the break and really there's a meme. I don't know if you saw the meme, Ashton, but it kind of summed it up perfectly. Let's look at, what these guys have done. When the Shield broke, you had Seth win Money in the Bank. You could really say being a part of the whole authority angle, just in general, that big umbrella. And he recently, by all accounts, main evented a WrestleMania and he won the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Roman Reigns wins the Rumble. He also main evented Mania this year. And then the meme, I'm not going to say it exactly how they said it, but they say his biggest accomplishment is dating Renee Young. That sucks. That sucks because Dean, I feel like, I want him to get his turn, not because, I'm a Dean Ambrose fan and, blah, 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 but because I know he could handle it and I know he could kill it. Again, I think these two are going to do something really cool together at Extreme Rules, and I'm looking forward to that Chicago street fight. And I do think, it's cool as a Luke Harper fan to kind of see him in this spot. But I also have to think about Dean Ambrose. Should he really be here? Because by now I would have loved to have seen him in a legitimate program with Seth, kind of reigniting their feud for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. And I fear if they do pull that trigger, like you said earlier in our discussion, is it even going to feel organic, or is it even going to feel like, oh, okay, because they've been rivals, let's just do it for the sake of doing it and creating more fodder for Seth Rollins' reign when Dean Ambrose is so far beyond fodder to me. So we'll see.
Yeah. All right. That's about all I had to say. I just wanted to kind of get that off my chest because it's kind of been bugging me.
Hey, man, that's what TWitWoW is for. I'm really glad you brought it to the forefront.